In this presentation, we're going to take a look at the most common protocols and their port numbers. As you already know, TCP/IP is going to be a suite of protocols, which is basically laying down the foundational groundwork for a multitude of the protocols that we use. And again, it's going to enable how communication occurs, how data is transmitted, addressed, routed, delivered, from across the network, from again the physical layer all the way up to the application layer. So again, you can see the importance of the OSI model. All right, next let's take a look at the protocols and their default port numbers. So the protocols are going to have So the protocols, the vast majority of them, are going to have default port numbers associated with them. So it basically allows the devices to direct traffic to the correct application or the service associated with that protocol. And again, as we get through a little bit more through the course, we'll look at basically routing and how firewalls work, and they're really dependent on the port number. So as should be already known, that most of the protocols are going to be within the, as you already should know, that most of the protocols are going to fall into the well-known range for their default port numbers. There's going to be a few of them that are going to be outside the range, which is okay, but they're all common protocols that we need to know for this particular course. Now let's basically compare how protocols work in terms of a department and then a extension. So if we take a look at this particular analogy, we have a department which may contain sales, marketing, accounting, shipping, as well as IT. And these would be the port numbers, or basically the extensions utilized to identify the department. So if you call the operator, you could ask for the sales department or the extension, and you get basically the same service. So that is basically no different than how a protocol works. But you notice here I just wrote down that this is a service. Services and protocols are utilized interchangeably. So once again, we have the different protocols associated here and their default port numbers. So again, it's almost identical to how the department extensions work between the services and the port numbers. So again, when you look at this configuration here, the vast majority of protocols are going to be working in the upper layer protocols. And if you recall, we have two protocols here, TCP and UDP. And remember that TCP is connection oriented, so we have a special set of protocols that work on that one. And then we have UDP, which basically we have another set of protocols that work under that particular protocol. And again, the transportation is to provide end-to-end communications. So TCP is connection oriented, UDP is connectionless. And then we have other protocols down in the lower layers again, which generally don't have any port numbers assigned to them. TCP and UDP don't have any port numbers, but again, the vast majority of them would be up here. Now let's take a look at some of the common protocols and their default port numbers. So these are the things that you're going to need to know, so you want to write them down and basically memorize them because they will be on the exam. So one series of protocols here is for the web. We have the HTTP utilizing port 80, and again, this is basically the default port to display web pages on your browser, and uses the transport and the transportation layer. It uses TCP. HTTPS is going to be the secure equivalent, so the port is going to be 443. And again, this is just a secure connection that utilizes SSL or TLS for secure configurations. And then, again, in the transportation layer is also utilizing TCP. Next, we have file transfer protocols. So here we have FTP, which you're going to utilize port 2021. Generally with FTP 21 is typically what is commonly identified, and that's going to be utilized for transferring files. and this one is going to be utilizing the TCP. And then we have its cousin, TFTP, Trivial File Transfer Protocol, uses port number 69. And the difference here is it is a connectionless, so it's utilizing UDP in the transportation layer protocol. All right, next we have a whole bunch of different email protocols. So first of all, we have SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Default port number there is 25. And the important thing for email, this is utilized to send emails. And notice that this is also unencrypted, and the transportation layer is going to be utilizing TCP. The secure version of this is going to be SMTP with TLS, utilizes port number 587. So again, this is a secure connection, and you notice that basically all these are going to be utilizing the TCP layer or TCP protocol on the transportation layer. A couple other protocols to make note of here. We have POP3, which is short for Post Office Protocol. By default, it's utilizing port 110. And this is basically retrieving mails or incoming mail. Then we have POP3 over SSL, which is a secure connection. Default port number for that one is 995. And again, this is going to be a secure connection with that. And then we have another one here called IMAP. Default port number is 143. And again, this is basically for incoming messages and not secure, where we have IMAP over SSL, port number 993. And that, again, is going to be for secure incoming mail for the IMAP protocol. Next up, we have a series of protocols for remote access. So one that we commonly see in the books and everything is called Telnet. By default, it utilizes port number 23. So this is not a very common protocol. Actually, it's in a way becoming obsolete. No one utilizes it because this is a unencrypted text-based command line, and the keyword here, unencrypted. So that means it's not going to be secure. Again, this one's going to be utilizing TCP protocol on the transportation layer. So the protocol that's utilized most often is going to be SSH, short for Secure Shell. This is port number 22. So this is the encrypted command line. And again, it's using the TCP component. And another one here called RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol. And look at this port number 3389. So it's not in the well-known range, right? It's in the registered range. And this is basically a protocol that gives us remote access in a graphical component to access Windows systems. Again, this is going to be utilizing TCP as the underlying protocol in the transportation layer. Now, these next series of protocols fall under the name and directory services. So DNS, Domain Name System. So we're going to be spending quite a bit of time on this particular service. Very important service in networking. Default port number here is going to be 53. Thing is, with this one here, it translates domain names or host names to IP addresses. Very, very, very important service. And this one, you notice it utilizes UDP for the transportation layer protocol. Two other ones here, LDAP and LDAP-S. One's secure, one's not secure. So it utilizes port 389 for the unsecure version. And here we're utilizing port number 636 for the secure version. So this is basically a directory services protocol for accessing directory information, simply meaning this. So this is a protocol that if we have a server, everything is going to be stored in the server in terms of the accounts, user account names and stuff. And here we have our client machines. So the clients are going to be utilizing LDAP to get authenticated, so they're able to get logged in to the system here. And again, all these ones here are going to be utilizing TCP as their transportation layer protocol. So these ones are going to be for networking and system services. Another very important one is called DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. It's going to be utilizing port numbers 67 and 68. Again, we're going to be having a longer discussion on how this protocol works. And this is, again, a very important protocol on a network where it assigns IP addresses utilizing that DHCP service to the client computers. You notice here it utilizes UDP. Another protocol, very important, is what we call the NTP, Network Time Protocol. Conveniently, it's port number 1, 2, and 3. So it synchronizes the system clocks, right, with a computer system, or basically the service, over the network, over the internet, should we say. And that utilizes TCP. So all the systems here will be synchronized utilizing the same time. Another fairly important protocol here is SNMP, not to get confused with SMTP, Simple Network Management Protocol. Ports here of 61 and 162. It's 161 and 162. And this one, actually pretty cool, it is used to set up to collect information about the devices. So basically, when you have literally hundreds and maybe even thousands of devices on your network, you want to have some kind of indicator in terms of how well they're performing. So this is basically the protocol that will do that. And you notice here we're using UDP. Another one here is called syslog, or System Logging Protocol. Utilizes port number 514. And this is utilized, well, as it sounds here, for message logging. Now, this protocol is more commonly utilized on the Linux, Unix platform to store information and manage the logging servers. And this one, again, is utilizing UDP. All right, a few more. We have now some protocols for a database. We have SQL. Technically, it's not a protocol. The Windows or Microsoft application to this is utilizing a port number by 1433. That'd be default. So this is going to be a proprietary port number utilized by Microsoft SQL Server. Now, again, this is specifically towards Microsoft. Here's another one, SQLnet. This is basically for Oracle services. It utilizes port number 1521. And both of them utilize the TCP protocol for the transportation layer. And another set of protocols here for VoIP and media. Very important protocol. You have a VoIP system. You're using SIP, Session Initiation Protocol, which is going to be utilizing port numbers 5060 and 5061. And depending basically on how things are configured, we have UDP or TCP. Most often, UDP is going to be utilized. It's connectionless. It's going to be a faster protocol than TCP. Another one here is going to be the RTP, Real-Time Transport Protocol. Utilizes port number 5004 to 5005. And same kind of thing, except for this one here, we're using audio and video to transfer over an IP network. And this one's going to be utilizing UDP. Now, the last two over here are going to be towards media. We have a standard here of H323, which basically is going to be utilizing port number 1720. Now, transport is going to be TCP or UDP. And then we have our last one here, MGCP, all right, Media Gateway Control Protocol. Port numbers 2427 to 2727. And the default port number here is going to be UDP. All right, so hopefully this gives you a good foundation in terms of the port numbers. Some of them we're going to be talking about in greater detail, like DNS and DHCP. So stay tuned for that.